and welcome back to the podcast that might actually need a smaller boat. Welcome back to the podcast that would stand up to Biff for you. Welcome back to the podcast that slaps harder than Will Smith. Welcome back to the podcast that believes we should just move on from Jurassic World. Welcome back to the podcast that will always follow your parlay. Welcome back to the podcast that is with you until the end of the line. Welcome back to the podcast that took both the blue and the red pill. Welcome back to the best part of your week. Welcome back to another episode of the Love, Death and Movies podcast, internet's #1 film breakdown and review show. The show that crushes watch lists week after week. Each month is a different genre. Each week is a different film in that genre. So follow us on everything, John on the right, and let's watch some movies. With me, I'm Harry. I'm one of your hosts, as always, Harry. With me, of course, is my two lovely co-hosts, Ash and Byron. But we've got a returning guest. A future Hall of Famer. He's an MVP. He's an MVP. Kev, the movie review man. Kev, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on.
No, appreciate it, man. Like, yeah, we put out our. We're currently in the month of sweat, which I quite love that name, to be honest. The more I think about the name, it's just so good. And we put out like our schedule of films, and Jules is one of them. Kev reached out and was immediately like, favorite movie of all time I'm on. I'm like, yes.
Had to.
Oh, I woke up to that message from Ash and I was just like, hell yes. It made my day. So Kev, thanks so much for coming on, dude. Really appreciate it. But as I said, we were in second last week of the month of sweat. We're of course doing one of the best blockbusters of all time. Probably my favorite blockbuster of all time, which is Steven Spielberg's Jaws from 1975. But before we get into that, guys, how was your week? Ash, I haven't spoken to you for a couple of days.
Have you not?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I block everything out now.
The week's fine. I'm on vacation until next Thursday. I'm getting on a flight at 8 tomorrow to go to San Diego, so that's where I'm at. I have to pack and do a bunch of things after this. So.
Are you taking Scooter?
No.
Scooter's been left home alone. He's running the roost.
He'll be with Dad. He'll be good.
I guess that's good. That's good. Byron.
Yeah, my week's been alright. Only thing that's important is that it's fight week again. Let's fucking go.
Yeah,
Let's go, baby. That's all I care about.
Yeah, Connor's a coward. I agree. Kev, how's your week?
It's going well. I'm a father of two, so
Congratulations.
Thank you. So this weekend's Father's Day weekend. So
Awesome.
We have a couple things planned. My wife does, so it's gonna be a good, fun weekend.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy
Thank you.
Father's Day, Kev.
Thank you. It's still weird that people like wish me Happy Father's Day.
You're killing it. Good work, man. You're nailing it. Nah, awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, my week's been hectic. Work's been crazy, but it's the Sydney Film Festival at the moment, Kev, which I've talked to these guys endlessly about. I'm seeing a total of 22 movies there, and I'm 15 down. I saw my 15th last night. Yeah. Today, after this, I literally leave this, maybe go for a walk, and then I got 3 movies back to back to back. The last one being Megalopolis. So I'm like going to that movie, which apparently is like super intense and confusing. After seeing 2 movies, so I'm like, we'll see what happens. But it's also game day, AFL, Sydney Swans. We're the fucking best. But that's for another podcast.
So Warriors are on today too.
Up the
What's
wires.
been your favorite film at the?
Ooh, good question.
That's so
One
far.
sec. All right, so
Can I guess?
sure.
Actually, I forgot. The Yorgos film.
Yes, Kinds of Kindness.
Yeah, I'm the best.
Kinds of Kindness is the one that like everyone knows is there. That like it's like if you're a Yorgi fan, it's so fucking weird. It's so weird and fun. Yeah, this is his nickname. That's what they call him.
No, I don't think so.
That's what Emma Stone said in an Oscar speech. But another one that isn't well known, Kev, that you should definitely put on your watch list is Cottontail. It's a 90-minute Japanese film about a man that loses his wife. This is all like before the movie even starts, so it's not a spoiler. Man that loses his wife, and she's a massive Beatrix Potter fanatic. And her last dying wish is for her ashes to be spread in Lake Windermere, which is where all the Beatrix Potter stories are based at. So it's about this like Japanese family going to England to spread the ashes of the wife and mother, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful film. I was in a packed crowd, no seat left, and I was just bawling like a.
I'm gonna put it on my watch list right now.
Yeah, I was bawling like a man. Bawling like a man. Yeah, Cottontail, one word.
Cocktail.
It's great. But This week, we're talking about Jaws from 1975, directed by Stevie Spielberg. Budget was $7 million. Can you guys guess what the box office was?
I think it's like over 500. It was like huge actually for the time. Wasn't it like over 500 or something?
It was
if I
just
More
remember
than
right?
7 million.
Yeah, it was just below 500, which
Wow,
you're
that's great.
you're absolutely correct. That is extraordinary compared to a $7 million budget. That's massive. So, and that's not. I'm not sure if that's adjusted with inflation. So it could very much be like 700, 800 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't go into the water when an insatiable great white shark terrorizes the townspeople of Amity Island. The police chief, an oceanographer, and a grizzled shark hunter seek to destroy the bloodthirsty beast. Before we get into the story, guys, as always, we always start with what's our initial thoughts. Don't give me your rating, although I'm pretty sure we already know everyone's rating except for one. Byron, let's start with you. Well, what do you think of Jaws? Stevie Spielberg's Jaws. Sorry, I caught you off guard. My bad. Sorry.
I mean, no, I went to go stretch. I was just like,
My
"Oh,
bad.
fuck,"
No.
back into shot. I mean, it's Jaws. You know, what can you actually say about Jaws that hasn't been said time and time again? It's a literal masterpiece. It's one of the most influential movies of all time. It's the movie that kickstarted the summer blockbuster. It's arguably Steven Spielberg's best movie. It's one of the greatest thrillers. It's one of the greatest horrors. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. I love Jaws. I mean, how can you not? But yeah, it's a great movie. I actually loved rewatching it, but I will say, when I watched it the first time, I'm very split on it because I have a massive phobia of water, or deep water.
Of like
Uh,
ocean water, like open water,
All deep
like,
water.
like pool, like deep end pools.
Yes, but not as bad.
Not
But
as bad. That's
in
fair.
2004, there was one of the biggest floods to ever hit New Zealand. I was 2. I stood in a puddle that was not a puddle; it was a fucking hole. I almost drowned in that hole, and ever since then, water can get fucked. So yeah, split on this movie, but it's better now that I'm older. But yeah, I don't know. I love horror. I hate water. It's a toss up on this
That's fair.
movie, honestly, but I like it.
To be honest, fear of open water is very common. Like,
Yeah, no, it's bullshit.
it's fear of the unknown sort of thing. But yeah, Kev, what
I
do you
don't
think
like
of
it.
Jaws?
So Jaws is my favorite movie of all time, but I have an
I love
interesting relationship with it. So when I first watched Jaws, I'm from Florida, so I'm from South Florida in the United States. So you know, tons of sharks.
Go
It's
Dolphins.
kinda- yeah, the Dolphins. But so I actually watched this movie for the first time, I think when I was 7. Somehow came across it and watched it, and I didn't go probably past my ankles in the ocean until I was 13, 14 years old. That's how much it like freaked me out. But funny enough, it kind of started like a passion of mine, which is sharks. And I ended up learning so much about sharks because of it and researching that now I have swam with sharks. I go into the open ocean all the time and swim. Like water doesn't scare me at all anymore. Like it's kind of like reversed my phobia of sharks. But I
Love
love
that.
it. Yeah, I love everything about it. Like I think so much about the movie is brilliant since like they only showed the shark I think for a total of 4 minutes in the whole movie.
Yeah.
So for it to be so feared and only barely be in the movie the entirety of the movie is pretty brilliant to me. The score, the acting performances, I think everything across the board is just remarkable.
Epic. Well done. Ash.
Shark's got aura.
Shark has got aura. Ash, what do you think of Jaws?
Yeah. I love this movie. I actually have only seen it twice now. This is only my second time watching it. I guess we were not a Jaws family. My parents did not like introduce me to this movie. I guess we were more of a Jurassic Park family. I don't know. I feel like I watched that movie when I was like little, but I had not watched this until probably high school one time. And this is my first time rewatching it. And it's been a minute since I was in high school. So yeah, I had forgotten most of like the actual scenes. I knew the big like lines and I knew the general like direction the movie goes. I forgot it takes so long to like really get going into like the 3 of them out there. So I do think for me, like the beginning takes a bit to get going for me personally, but I really do love Brody. I think he's a great character. I love his performance in this movie. I think he's my favorite, but Yeah, I think it's great. I think Jurassic Park wouldn't exist without it. I mean, blockbuster movies wouldn't exist without it. I'm a huge Spielberg girl, so there's not many movies he makes that I don't enjoy and have fun with. I honestly have never been a big creature feature person. Like my favorite horror films, you're not gonna. I mean, you guys know my favorite horror films. There's no creature movies really on those lists.
Sinister.
It's just not my personal favorite, but I do appreciate them. And I'm a huge practical effects person. So just what they were able to accomplish with the shark is amazing for the time. And so I think I respect the fuck out of this movie. It's just not a personal favorite, but I'm definitely going to revisit it many times throughout my life.
Hell yeah. Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm the opposite of you, Ash. I'm a big creature feature fan, and I grew up on Jaws. Like, very much like this is one of my mom's favorite movies, and like she listens to the show, so shout out Babs, how you doing? But she's like, what are you watching for the podcast this week? And I'm like, oh, watching Jaws, and she's like, oh, I love Jaws, and she's like this like really regal, like really lovely person. So it's like, oh, I love this movie about a killing machine in the water. But I love it. I think this movie is perfect. Like we can always touch on like how the shark's not shown that much, which is just such a benefit to this film for sure. But it wasn't shown because it was an animatronic shark that just kept breaking down. And they didn't have enough money to fix it, so they made it like, but it kind of like benefited the entire film as a whole, which I think's amazing. But yeah, you guys have said everything that I would have said. The movie is tremendous, and a lot of cinema owes itself to it. I would also like to say that Steven Spielberg needs to have way more respect on his name nowadays. There's a lot of people that love to fucking discredit him, like. And everyone's like, oh, but he made a shit movie here. I'm sorry, when he got a filmography the size of his, everyone's gonna make a shit movie. I'm sorry. But
People
like,
love to hate him.
No
so
one
much.
has made more family-friendly classics
Yeah.
than Steven Spielberg, first
Dude,
of all.
I think
Like,
he's probably my
Yeah.
goat. If I'm being
Factual.
completely honest, I think if we're gun to my head, Spielberg's my goat. Like, if we think, like, Jaws, E.T., Jurassic Park, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List.
he has the most rewatchable films,
Indiana
I feel like,
Jones!
as a filmography.
Indiana Jones.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, yeah. So if anyone's out there's like Spielberg's overrated, like first off, thank you for listening to the podcast. True respect to you. I hope you live a long and happy life. Go fuck yourself. Like,
I think it's
Hey, it's
mostly
my
in the
line.
circle of people that we hang out with. I think in like the film art kind of community, it's just he's an easy one to hate
yeah.
and call overrated, but most people in regular life don't feel that way.
Okay.
well,
good.
because he's not very he's not like artsy. Like
Mhm.
he makes very
Entertaining films.
to the masses films, like
Yeah.
people that everywhere can enjoy. You know, it's not
There's
like
nothing wrong with that at
Nothing
all.
wrong at all.
not at all.
Oh man, I love Stevie. I'm a big fan of Stevie. Big
Stevie.
fan.
One thing I want to point out real quick is
Go
that
ahead.
to what you said about your mom bringing that up. My mom actually watched Jaws when it was in theaters,
No,
and she
that's
tells me about the experience all the time. She watched it when she was 16 years old in theaters, and she says to this day she's seen hundreds of movies in theaters. She has never been in a theater when it was so quiet and everyone was terrified because she said like nothing, no one knew anything about sharks at that time. It was like a very like, now you got Shark Week, you got all this.
Mhm.
No one knew about sharks. So all of a sudden you see all these 17, 18-year-old kids sitting in a theater seeing this ginormous shark eating people. It like traumatized the whole generation of people as far as the ocean.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I
I've
love
got
that story.
my local cinema does retro movies every single week, and last year, the year before, they did a double feature of Jaws and then Jurassic Park. And I went there, and I like Jurassic Park was a lot of fun. Jaws in a cinema, like even though it's completely different now. Now it's much more entertainment. You know what you're going into. It was one of the best cinema experiences I've ever had. Like it's just so much fun. This movie is fucking fun, and so many people die. Like it's so much fun. Oh, I love it. Well, let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. All right. So this is a hefty one, but we're going to go through it, and I'm going to stop periodically. But again, if you got anything to say of anything I say, let's make it a conversation. Let's say yell out. But we start with the famous John Williams theme, and my gosh, it's good. So quick fun fact for you here, guys. When composer John Williams originally played the score for Stevie, aka Stevie Spielberg. Every time I'm going to mention Spielberg, it's going to be Stevie, just so you guys know. For Stevie, Stevie laughed and said, "That's funny, John, really. But what did you really have in mind for the theme of Jaws?" Spielberg later stated that without John Williams' score, the movie would have been only half a success, and according to Williams, it jump-started his career. That score, in essence, one of the best of all time because of how simple it is and how dread-inducing it is. So we get to the story. During an evening beach party at the New England coast, an attractive blonde named Chrissy catches the eye of a partygoer named Tom, and leads him away from the group to go skinny dipping. Classic. Tom, quite drunk, passes out on the sand and completely fumbles the bag, and that he can't even undress when Chrissy goes into the water and starts skinny dipping. Great. As Chrissy swims further up the shoreline, she pauses to tread water, and an unseen creature notices Chrissy's paddling legs from below the surface and begins to approach her. Chrissy is quickly attracted by the creature. Quickly attacked by the creature, which grabs her hold of her legs. Violent struggle. Beneath the waves, she is gone. You hear a couple screams, then silence. The surrounding town of Amity is preparing for the upcoming Independence Day weekend, which is the most financially lucrative time of the year for them. The community depends on tourism as a main source of economic support and waits eagerly each summer for it to arrive, with herds of mainlanders, that just seems like they're outsiders and losers, come to the savior of Amity's shores. So we get Martin Brody, played by Roy Schneider, and I truly believe, I'm sure a lot of people here agree, one of the best main characters of all time. He's just so good. He's just such a good canvas for everyone else around him. And he's also Amity's chief of police and receives a call at home regarding Chrissy Watkins' disappearance. Following the report made by Tom, aka the bloke that fell asleep, she was last seen on the coast. Brody goes to the beach with his deputy Jeff, love Jeff, to search for clues. Jeff soon stumbles upon the remains of Chrissy washed up on the shore and is also being feasted upon by crabs. It's kind of a visceral sort of image there. Little fun fact here, according to Stevie, the prop arm looked way too fake for this scene where Chrissy's remains were discovered, so instead they buried a female crew member in the sand and only had her arm exposed. I think that's pretty cool. Apologies, I got something in my throat. Back to the police station. Brody receives a call from the coroner, who determines that Chrissy was a victim of a shark attack. Ooh, on the fucking Independence Day weekend? Are you kidding me? Fearing for the safety of Amity's many swimmers, Brody immediately prepares to close the beaches until further investigations can be made, because that is probably the most logical thing to do. His intentions are quickly noticed by the mayor, who is also probably one of the best dumb villains in cinematic history. I love it. Who's fearing for the income loss that would result for closing the beach in such a pivotal point in the summer, and attempts to convince Brody that a shark attack is too hasty a conclusion, and pressures him and the coroner to change Chrissy's official cause to mutilation by boat propeller. But, dude, this guy sucks. Brody remains dedicated to the safety of Amity's citizens and tourists, and regardless of the financial toll that the town might endure, he wants to close the beaches. However, Vaughan forbids him to close the beaches just yet, maybe later. Over the next few days, a bunch of tourists arrive at Amity's docks. The beaches are crowded each and every day, and Brody is extremely concerned about potential attacks. As Brody and his wife, Ellen, who, by the way, smoke show. Absolute, well done, Brody, smoke show, well done. They sit on the sand. Brody scans the shoreline for any trouble. I love this scene where you can see he's just sweating. He's just sitting in the chair sweating, and then we eventually get that amazing long shot going to him, which we'll probably get to. A ways down the beach, young Alex asks for his mother. Also, Alex is played by an actor. I found this funny. Actor named Jeffrey Voorhees. I think that's pretty funny. It's like brother to Jason. And he asks for his mother to go permission for swimming. Her name's Miss Kinter, so it's Alex Kinter. Apologies. Though Miss Kinter notes that her son's fingers are starting to prune from the time spent in the water, she allows him to go for 10 more minutes, and that is his death note. Alex and his yellow raft enter the ocean one last time before being set upon by what's unmistakably an enormous shark. Amidst the ensuing panic of beachgoers, Miss Kinter, who has not seen the attack, calls out desperately for her son as the bloodied and shredded remains of the raft wash up on shore. So guys, what do you think about the opening? What do you think about the opening with you don't really see much, but you can see the setting of this town, kind of the mayor being the mayor throughout the entire film, but also like just like the way it kind of like sets up what this film's going to be, this like tense thriller of this like cat and mouse game sort of. Ash.
I'm first. Yeah, I think the opening is so classic. I mean, think about all the horror films we have now that open with like, a girl stripping down and her clothes. Like it's just so classic. I can't imagine it really being anything else than what it was with the college kids and the drinking and the skinny dipping. It just feels so on point for, those types of movies. Yeah, I love that you don't see it, obviously in the beginning. And
Big time.
then yeah, the thing I have to say about the mayor is like this movie is just like so typical like America. Like I don't know, it's just so perfect. Like all he care about is money. He doesn't care about people dying. He wants to cover it all up. He just wants to make sure he's going to get his profits. So I love it. I think it's the perfect type of villain for a movie like this. Like even though you have the shark, which is like the real threat. I love that there's like a human element too of like someone kind of keeping things from getting solved the right way, which kind of makes the real threat of the shark even worse than it probably needed to be because he doesn't want to take care of it the right way.
I like that.
So yeah, I love some of the camera work in this movie is some of my favorite like of all time.
The one shot that zooms right up to Brody's
Yes.
face, like I didn't mention in the
good.
notes, is so fucking good.
And yes, his wife is a smoke show.
Just absolute smoke show. Just letting you know. Kev, what do you think about the opening?
Yeah, I think we talk like opening scenes in horror, and a lot of people like to bring up Scream and different movies like that. But I truly think this is the greatest opening scene in horror history or thriller history, however you categorize this movie. I think it does such a really good job of like kind of pinpointing people's fears, which is like you don't know what's underneath you in the ocean.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Shout out Byron. I'm sure that's Byron's fear when he's near the ocean.
Fear of the
Is
unknown.
you don't know what's underneath there, and that's the whole thing. Is like this girl is like having fun, she's skinny dipping, doing whatever, and all of a sudden, this thing that you don't see drags her down. And what's cool about it, what I like, what they do with it, she has a couple screams, and then all of a sudden, dead silence, and you just don't hear anything else. It's done. It's dead of night, and that's it. And then next morning, and you move on. I think the mayor is like the real villain of this movie.
Yeah.
I think Spielberg does that like almost brilliantly to a degree, in saying like the shark is there, the shark is in its own water, it's in its own habitat. This mayor refuses to make a move that would make his citizens safe, and it's kind of like, and then now you're putting these three gentlemen in harm's way too because they got to go, do all this stuff, which the shark probably would have gone on its way if you'd closed the beach for a couple of days. So I mean, it's kind of brilliant in that aspect too. And the shot you guys talked about already, the one that zooms in on Brody with the score behind it is like perfect. It's so perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. I love everything about the opening of this movie.
Well said, Byron.
Yeah, I agree with Kev that it's 1000% one of, if not the greatest opening scenes in horror. For a horror movie, but it's just one of the greatest opening scenes ever. Not even just strictly horror. I mean, ever. I mean, I drafted this once upon a time. I can't describe what I originally titled this scene because people won't let me. But it's an old timer for sure. I love this movie. The way it's composed, the way it's shot, it's all amazing, and you don't see what's killing everyone, and it's great because it builds the tension in the movie as a whole. Anyway, it builds everything perfectly, and it doesn't even show you like what's doing it. We all know what's doing it, but we don't actually see it. And yes, that was because of production difficulties, but so it worked wonderfully. It was the greatest thing that could have happened. Honestly, it made this movie.
Absolutely. Like we can always say there's production difficulties, but they would have taken those difficulties and turned it into this. Like they wouldn't have just been like, oh, this is all we have, let's scrape it together. They would have like, all right, we can't do that anymore. Then they like reshot some scenes to make it like that's why Stevie's so fucking good. Like
Call him Stephen, please.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're on first name, nickname basis over here. Stevie Speil. But yeah, that like like he very much it did benefit this film in terms of the production restrictions, but it's also on him that he was able to turn it into this rather than just like let it blow up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, yeah, and the mayor is a absolute tosser.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want
he
to
is.
punch him.
I feel like this movie needed him though. It absolutely needed him.
Oh, it did. You can't have a fucking shark as a character. It's not a character.
Yeah,
You know, it's not gonna be giving you these like narrative important narratives. It's a fucking shark, you know?
my friend calls the mayor the sidekick to Bruce, which is the shark. It's like the sidekick to Bruce is the mayor. It's like
Yeah, the
he's helping
shark and the
people. He's
mayor are
feeding
working
him.
together.
He's feeding him. He's like, get him in the water. Get him in there. So with dozens of witnesses to Alex's gruesome death, the presence of the shark in Amity's water is undeniable, and Brody is finally permitted to close the beaches. Alex's grieving mother is offered offers a $3,000 reward to anyone who catches the shark that killed her son, and a town meeting is held to discuss the potential shark problem. I love this scene. Brody announces that the police department is expanding its efforts to keep the beaches safe, wow, as well as bringing a shark expert from the oceanographic, is that how you pronounce that word? Am I crazy?
He's an oceanographer.
Oh,
Yeah, he's an oceanographer, but yeah, the institute to assist them. My bad. Most of the assembled townspeople are more concerned with their finances than safety. They're all concerned about how their businesses are going to go and remain angry about the beaches being closed. Although the mayor assures them it'll only be for 24 hours. And then Brody's like, "You never told me that. We never discussed that." The chatter is quelled by Sam Quint, played by the incredible Robert Shaw, an eccentric and roughened local fisherman who guarantees the capture and slaughter of the offending shark for the price of $10,000. Like, that's all it's worth? Okay, sure. I've got a little quote here from his speech because I love it. "Y'all know me. Y'all know how I earn a living. I'll catch this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy. Bad fish. Not like going down to the pond chasing bluegills and tommycards. The shark will swallow you whole. Little shaking, little tenderizing, and you go, and down you go. And we gotta do it quick. That'll bring back your tourists, put all your businesses on a paying basis. But I'm not gonna be pleasant. But it's not gonna be pleasant. I value my neck more than $3,000, Chief. I'll find him for 3, but I'll catch him and kill him for 10. I love him so much. But you're all gonna make your minds up. If you want to stay alive, then ante up. If you want to play it cheap, be on welfare the whole winter, I don't want no volunteers. I don't want no mates. There's just 2 captains on this island. There's just too many captains on this island. $10,000 for me by myself. For that, you get the head, the tail, and the whole damn thing." Fuck, I love Quint. I love Quint so much. He's a piece of shit, but I love Quint. I love his relationship with Holt. We'll get to that. Though his offer is not accepted at the point, Quint seems confident that the job will eventually fall to him. With Mrs. Kinter's reward made public, scores of amateur shark hunters crowd Amity's docks, coming from all over the North Coast. 2 local men make a clumsy attempt to lure the shark with a pork roast, which results in one of them nearly being the shark's 3rd victim. Arriving at the same time as the horde of overconfident fishermen is Matt Hopper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, the shark expert from the Oceanographic Institute hired by the Amity Police. Here's a good little scene here where Brody's like, "Can you just tell those guys to not overcrowd that boat?" And then Hopper's like, "Gentlemen, the police sheriff has told me not to let you guys know not to overcrowd that boat." And they're like, "Yeah, whatever, buddy." And they start to still just pile it on him. And he's like, "They're all gonna die." After meeting with Brody, Hopper is allowed to view the remains of Chrissy Watkins, which are brought to him by an enormously small container, which is really creepy. Hopper is visibly shaken after examining the remains of the mangled body parts and assures Brody that Chrissy did not die from boating accident, that it was definitely a shark attack. "Didn't you get a boat and check in these waters?" "No." "Well, this is not a boat accident. Wasn't any propeller, wasn't any coral reef, and it wasn't Jack the Ripper. It was a shark." Love it. The town breathes a sigh of relief when the corpse of a large tiger shark is displayed on the docks, having been caught by some of the contending fishermen. Brody is initially elated, believing the nightmare is over, until Hopper examines the creature's mouth and determines that the bite radius does not match the wounds of Chrissy Watkins' remains, and therefore it's not likely the shark that they're seeking. Hopper wanting to be completely certain, suggests that they examine the contents of the shark's stomach, as the slow digestive system would ensure that the recent meals would still be inside. Brody supports this plan, but the mayor seems a bit disturbed by the notion and disapproves, because why wouldn't he want closure? Anyway, the crowd falls silent as Miss Kinter arrives, clad in black and choking back tears, presumably returning from her son's funeral. She approaches Brody and slaps him across the face, furiously accusing him of keeping the beaches open despite having prior knowledge that there was a man-eating shark in the waters. Brody, angry, ashamed, because all the more determined. Brody, angry and ashamed, becomes all the more determined to prevent the attacks. While Brody attempts to unwind at home with his wife and children, Hopper stops to discuss the shark situation, underlying the early suspicion that with the captured tiger shark is not the animal responsible for the deaths of Alex or Chrissy Watkins. He believes that the culprit is not a tiger shark but a great white, and that unless it is stopped, it will likely remain in Amity's waters as a food source is completely depleted. Hopper and Brody decide to examine this the remains in the shark's stomach, regardless of the mayor's opinions. Then why don't you grab one more drink and go? Why don't we grab one more drink and go down and cut that shark open? Martin, you can't do that. I can do anything. I'm the chief of police. I love him. The men visit the deserted docks at night and locate the dead tiger shark. Hopper slices its belly open and shows bisected fish, tin cans, and a Louisiana license plate, leading him to theorize that the shark made its way from the Atlantic coast up from the Gulf of Mexico. Finding no human remains, Hopper and Brody confirm that this cannot be the shark that they're after. It's still out in the waters. Hopper convinces Brody to continue their investigation on the waters, though Brody is terrified of the ocean. Why would you be living on a secluded island? Doesn't matter. Using sonar equipment, Hopper locates a large object a good distance away from the shoreline. Brody recognizes it as the boat of Ben Gardner, a local fisherman. So Hopper decides to investigate the half-submerged craft, despite Brody's protests, and dons his scuba gear and entering the water. Hopper discovers a large hole in the hull of the boat and finds an enormous tooth embedded in the side. While examining the tooth, he's suddenly horrified by the corpse of Ben Gardner floating in the hull. One of his eyes are missing, and that's probably like one of the most terrifying moments of this entire film. That is one of the real good jump scares. I love that.
It fucking got me.
It's so good. So Hopper drops the tooth and his flashlight and rushes to the surface. Brody and Hopper make yet another attempt to reason with the mayor, hoping their latest discoveries will make a difference. The mayor, however, is still stubbornly dismisses their arguments, insisting that even the evidence of Ben Gardner's ravaged boat, there is no proof that the shark is responsible. Hopper explains that he pulled the tooth of a great white shark out of the hull of Gardner's boat, but the mayor meanly rebuffs him once again, since Hopper can't produce the tooth that he dropped in the water. Stupid. Though he allows Brody and Hopper to take precautions to keep the beaches safe, he refuses to close them. Quote, I don't think either one of you are familiar with our problems, Hopper. I think I'm familiar with the fact that you're going to ignore this particular problem till it swims up and bites you in the ass. I'm not going to waste my time with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch. I love that. Mr. Vaughn, what we're dealing with is a perfect engine. An eating machine. It's really a miracle of evolution. All this machine does is swim, eat, and make little sharks. That's it. So guys, anything to add here before we get on to kind of the meat of the film, which is going to Quint and finally getting this all up? No worries at all. But Ash.
Yeah. I'm sorry, remind me, did we already get through the second beach scene where like everyone's there? No, okay.
No, that's next.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the only thing to really add is that I do like the introduction of Matt. I think that he's really funny and very like matter of fact in the way that he, delivers his lines and kind of adds that more like logical scientist type of brain. I don't know, this movie feels too real in some ways, where it's like you have this big thing that happens to this place. It doesn't have to be a shark attack, but it's like you have the stubborn mayor who just cares about money, the chief of police who's kind of like on his own, and then you have this like science guy And then you have like the local guy who's like very rugged and does his own thing. And it's just funny to watch all the personalities kind of blend together. That's one of my favorite parts of kind of all these characters.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I think the scene where they're at the table, or where Brody's at the table and the wife is kind of like, I think, at a loss, and she says something like, he won't even talk to me. Like, sure, go ahead, try. Like, he's just like obviously kind of like down on everything. And I love the scene where she's like, okay, I'll get the wine, and she just like perks right up. And I don't know, it's just kind of a funny little moment. So yeah, I think it's kind of just like momentum towards the main event, if you will. So this part of the movie for me is like, it's not a lull, it's not the word I want to use, but it just sort of just feels like, you know, building up to something. It doesn't, like, nothing really stands out to me outside of just kind of getting introduced to Matt's character and kind of hearing some of the funny lines that you already kind of quoted.
Yeah, he's like a character for the audience where he's literally saying stuff. Where it's like, where people loading the boats, I'm like, you guys are so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, you know what's in the water? Like, and he's just like, they're all gonna die. Like, I love that. Yeah.
Great.
Kev.
Hopper, I think, is really important because he's kind of like the lighter side of the film. You know,
For
he's
sure.
cracking jokes. He's, you know, messing with people. He kind of allows that little bit of a lighter side to the film, which Quint is very like hard, tough as nails, and they kind of butt heads, which is kind of perfect. But specifically the scene where he goes down and it's kind of like a jump scare, I think that kind of just shows how much jump scares have changed, like dramatically over the years. I think that is the perfectly executed jump scare, whereas
So
like
good.
you know, like a lot of jump scares now are a little more like artificial. It doesn't seem as genuine. That one is more like, what would happen if you literally were in the water down there and all of a sudden just a body just popped out of nowhere? Like it just felt like a genuine reaction that someone would have. But yeah, I love Hopper. I think he is just as much of a standout in this movie as Brody is. Honestly, I think they're all three of them are just
They're a great
perfect.
trio. They're a great trio, aren't they? Oh, so good. Nice. Byron.
Trios draft in the future. Now that you say that,
Yeah, not bad.
throwing the idea out. Yeah, I don't actually think I've ever taken into account like how good that jump scare is.
Yeah.
I've watched, I think, well over 350 horror movies. Jump scaring me is really hard. I'm not saying that to be like a fucking macho man, but they genuinely, like, I mean, I expect pretty much all of them. I completely forgot about this one. This one actually made me jump, and I watched this shit at like 2:30 in the morning. Oh my god, it got me so bad. But I would have no issue saying that this is the greatest, or at least one of the greatest horror jump scares ever.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it, and yeah, you reacted pretty realistically. I'm sure everyone's expression would be that if they were looking into a boat underwater at night and a head popped out of the yeah, it's a great scene. And this is where I think most of the characters, this is where their development like really gets going, which I really, really like, and it gets even better in the next section, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I really like all this middle stuff and that jump scare. Good job, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I love Hopper. I think Hopper's my favorite. I think he's like the voice of the audience. We've all said this already, but he very much is like the voice of the audience. You're very right, Byron. Like, this is where he's like, he starts to change, where he's just there to see if he was originally brought to the island to see if this is a shark, like if this person, if this shark's real, if this tiger shark is the right shark, yada yada yada, and like what type of shark is doing this. But then he goes through all this, and now he's just like, now he has to help capture and kill this shark now. Like, this is now like part of his job. Like,
yeah, you could say he's in too deep.
Yeah, nice. I straight away thought of Sum 41 then. I'm in too deep. Is that Sum 41?
Yeah.
Am I crazy? That's Sum 41,
I don't
right?
think
Yeah.
you got the right band, but I love that song.
I'm pretty sure it's Sum 41.
Wait, no, Shit.
No,
I got it. I got it. Okay,
yeah,
keep
thank
going.
you. Awesome. So next part, Independence Day weekend finally arrives, bringing plenty of tourists. The beachgoers, but the beachgoers are made uneasy by the numerous police boats patrolling the waters because of the shark. You imagine going onto a beach and just seeing all these shark patrol boats. That's like going into a restaurant, sitting down and seeing Gordon Ramsay and his Kitchen Nightmares crew come in. You're like, I don't want to be here. Vaughn is concerned that no one is swimming.
You're correct, Harry.
Yes. There we go. Fuck yeah, I'm a 90s kid. Vaughn is concerned by that no one is swimming and asks a personal friend to attend the water along with his wife and grandchildren. Nuts. This is crazy.
What the fuck? I'm sorry. I remember watching this bit and I was just like, I completely forgot. Bro, he asked him to get in the water and the dude took his wife and grandchildren. It's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
It's really messed up.
It's crazy. To put everyone's minds at ease, the man and his family reluctantly and warily obey, and others begin to relax and follow suit. Remaining on the beach, Brody is aiding with the shark patrol. With his eldest son Michael, wishes to take out his new sailboat onto the water with his friends. Brody asks him to take it into the adjacent sanctuary to be safe, like little pond that's right there. Michael reluctantly agrees just to kind of ease his mind. Good kid. In the meantime, a dorsal fin appears among the swimmers in the main water, and panic erupts. The crowd scrambles onto the beach and the police boats close in, only to discover that the shark is merely a cardboard fin wielded by two young pranksters in snorkel gear. Honestly, classic gear. That's hilarious.
Yep.
The beachgoers begin to relax, but a young woman onlooking the water sees the unmistakable form of a huge shark making its way to the sanctuary where Michael and his friends are sailing. No! The woman's cry is first dismissed by another prank. But when Ellen reminds her husband, that absolute smoke show of a wife reminds her husband that their son is in the pond, Brody goes to investigate. Michael and his friends are approached by a man in a rowboat who's instructing them on knotting techniques. It's kind of weird. Have you ever seen an old man sail up to a bunch of kids and tell them how to tie a knot? I think that's weird. I thought that was weird. This guy deserves to die. When both vessels are suddenly capsized by the shark, when both vessels are capsized by the shark, the startled sailors surface, and Michael watches in paralyzed horror as the man fails to reach his boat before the shark rips him apart. Death by shark. Michael and his friends are brought to safety by shore, though Michael is taken to the hospital and treated for shock. Brody confronts the mayor once again and puts his foot down, demanding that real action is taken on the shark. Mayor, for once, is vulnerable and shaken, and realizing that his own children were on the beach that day as well. He finally admits and gives Brody full permission and closes the beaches and to do all that is necessary to stop this shark. Sam Quint is immediately hired. Get on the bill, Sam. Though Quint is a vastly experienced shark hunter, decides to take this mission alone, that'd be a pretty boring movie. So Brody insists that he and Hopper will go as well. There is instant tension between Quint and Hopper, and I love this relationship. With Quint seeing Hopper as the rich snob with no real shark hunting experience. Who has shark hunting experience? If you have shark hunting experience, you're swiping left on Hinge. Like, that's crazy. You're not putting that as like a dating profile. And Hopper seeing Quint as a reckless thrill seeker with a bullish attitude. Quint says, "You have city hands, Mr. Hopper. You've been counting money all your life." All right. Hey, I don't need this. I don't need this working class hero crap. I love that. Though Hopper proves himself to be a capable sailor, the discomfort remains as the three men embark on their voyage on Quint's boat, known as... What's Quint's boat name?
Orca.
Yes, Orca. Once out at the sea, the real movie begins, eh? The real meat of this movie begins. Yes. The men set about attracting the shark by ladling chum off the stern of the boat. I love the word chum. I love the word chum in this movie. Like, we'll keep ladling chum. I feel like that's something you guys probably do in New Zealand, right, Byron? You ladle?
Sorry, what?
Yeah, anyway.
No.
Quint attaches a line of piano wire to a sturdy rod attached to a specifically designed fishing chair on the deck. After hours of waiting, the wire goes taut, and everyone snaps as the immense creature swims under the boat before disappearing again. Brody, Hopper, and Quint realize this enormous strength of their adversary. It's a giant shark. How wouldn't you have noticed this? As the voyage presses on, no further sign of the shark. Brody grumpily ladles more chum into the water in the back of the boat. Without warning, the massive head of the great white shark emerges briefly in the wake, and Brody is stunned and alerts the others. This, I think, is probably my favorite shot of the movie, where he's like not even looking at the shark and the shark just comes up. I think that's genius. It's so cool. I think that this might also constitute as a jump scare, and probably will be my favorite jump scare. But it also is followed by the incredible line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." Like, instant iconic line all through. So, a little fun fact here: according to Carl Gottlieb, Roy Schneider ad-libbed that line. That wasn't in the original script, and immediately made history. So Hopper notices the shark begins to circle the boat, and Quint rushes out for a look, and he estimates that the shark is 25 feet long and weighs 3 tons. Nice. After barking orders to Brody and Hopper, Quint begins to fire harpoons. God, this is just such a boys. Like, this is a boys trip, you know? Let's go fire some harpoons at some fucking sharks, eh? Begins to fire harpoons tied to plastic barrels intended to slow the shark down and make its presence more visible. So when I started to get into movies, like when I big time, when I was like, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago, I remember watching Jaws and seeing this of like how they tied the big air barrels. I'm like, that is really smart. Like, I thought this was a genius take. I thought it was cool. So though Quint hits the shark with 3 harpoons, the barrels have no effect, and the shark easily pulls them under the water because that shark is a tank, probably plays for the Warriors. There you go, Byron. Just in time, Hopper manages to attach a tracking device at the beast. Glad that he has a shark tracking device, by the way. But just in time, Hopper manages to attach a tracking device to the beast before it retreats again. So, guys, we've got basically one more part after this. Any thoughts here of like the voyage, the start of the voyage? You're gonna need a bigger boat.
If I could start here, that'd be amazing. I have a lot to say. So,
Okay.
one, the jump scare that you like, with Brody throwing the chum in. So funny enough, I listened to some of the old commentary, and so that reaction from Roy is genuine because he didn't expect the shark to jump out at that moment, but the shark started working. The animatronics started working, so they decided to scare the crap out of him and have it pop up, and they kept it in the movie. So that's like a genuine reaction to him. He didn't expect the shark to jump up. Also, one scene I love, like, I think honestly top 3 scenes from the movie for me is the cardboard bin scene, because I think that's so cool, because it's like, it just shows like the panic and how like everyone is just on edge, and like it's really just a couple kids just like playing a prank, and at the same time the actual shark is doing something, is wreaking havoc in a different part of the island. So it's just like, it kind of like plays to that like paranoia that everyone's having.
Big time.
I love that. And I just love the shot where they like zoom in on the 2 kids, and they're just like, they're shaking, they're so scared because they know they're in trouble.
He
And it's just all it's all the cops just like pointing guns like right at these 2 little kids. It's just, like,
so good.
It's perfect. Yeah, the scene with the guy with the boat was, I've always found that scene a little bit weird, a little bit off. Like, why is like just like a man like rowing over and being like, "Hey, can I help you?" Like,
How do you do,
like,
fellow children? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little off, but it's whatever. But yeah, everything about the chum scene, and this is the first. I think the chum scene is the first official time we see we actually see the shark. I think the face of the shark. I think that's the first time, and I think that's why too. Like, it's such a cool thing if it was like an actual genuine reaction from Roy, because like it's the first time they actually possibly used the shark. So I just love that scene so much.
Great point. Byron.
Yeah, when the shark comes out of the water and you see it in all of its glory, I think that, I don't think I've actually realized that just little like flash of like, it's only up there for what, maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds. That probably influenced every single time a character in a horror movie is standing there and you see a shadow fly by the back, behind them. 100%. I reckon that's where that came from,
Probably.
or was, or most of it came from. I think this is where like their every character's development. This is where it peaks. Is when they're on this boat in the middle of the ocean, trying to kill this goddamn shark. This is definitely my favorite part of the movie. This is where it all picks up. This is the climax, or the beginning of the climax. I love it. I love all these scenes. I think Steven Spielberg, man, he did he did such a good job with this shark. It's again 4 minutes or whatever of screen time. This is where you first see it, and we're nearing the end of the movie, and this is where you first see it. It's so well done. It's super well done. It's great.
Oh, hell yeah. Ash first movies from TikTok.
That's me. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much because they've already said some great stuff. But yeah, I think for me, when it hits the scene where they go back to the beach and like the kids go to the pond and that whole thing you were talking about, Kev, with the fake, shark and then the real situation happening. I think from there on out, the movie is perfect. Like that for me is where like the suspense just continues to build up. And as a viewer, I was just like, because I hadn't remembered what happens exactly in every scene from my first watch. So I was like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen next? So that's really for me where the movie really picks up. But it's in typical horror fashion where I guess, usually halfway through is really when like the kills and the big thing starts to happen. So it does it tracks in that sense. But yeah, I think that ad lib line, I think I learned that actually from one of your videos, Kev, like a long time ago.
I think I did as well, actually. So.
Yeah, so I knew that going into this watch, but I did not know that like originally, which I think is just great. I think them on the boat is just guys being dudes and just
just
trying
boys.
to get a shark. Just the boys on the boat trying to get Bruce.
Just like a Richard
the boys on
Linklater
the
film.
boat with Bruce.
This is like a Richard Linklater film. That's so funny. Yeah, like I've just like throughout this podcast when I mentioned that, like where you guys are talking, I messaged my boys group chat like, lads, you want to go to open water and hunt a shark one time?
You'll be so good at it.
Can we get a Richard Linklater version of Jaws where they're just like vibing, drinking like
could you imagine?
beers and just
I'd pay good money.
I would watch that.
Good money.
trying to hunt a shark?
Oh man, if Ethan Hawke plays the shark, that'd be great.
That would be amazing.
That'd be good fun. But we're getting into what I think's my favorite part of the movie, which is the night. So that night, the men have dinner and drinks below deck, and Hopper surprisingly begins to bond with Quint as they compare scars, their war wounds from their experiences with various sea creatures. This conversation, this mutual respect over scars, I think this is my favorite. And then the sea shanty. So Brody notices that Quint has a tattoo removed, and Quint admits that the former tattoo represented the U.S. Navy cruiser Indianapolis. I think I pronounced that right. Indianapolis. There we go. On which he was a sailor in World War II. Quint goes on to illustrate the horrible day of July in 1945 when the Indianapolis was sunk by Japanese torpedoes, leading to 1,100 men floundering in shark-infested waters. Quint witnessed 800 of his comrades being picked apart by sharks and is clearly affected by the chilling memory. That is truly a horrifying story. The experience combined with survivor's guilt has ignited Quint's deep-seated hatred for sharks. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that. And the ruthless satisfaction he finds in hunting them. After the absolute disparity of Quint's story, the men sing a rowdy sea shanty to lighten the mood, but are interrupted by the returning sharks violently crashing into the boat, causing a leak. Quint rushes on deck, fires a rifle at the three tall barrels but the shark escapes once again, and we get into our final part. The next day, the men attempt to repair the boat with limited success. I gotta say, that'd be so tough to repair a boat while it's in water in open sea. I think that's well done. Seawater has contaminated the diesel fuel, and the black smoke billowing out of from the exhaust pipe confirms the engine damage. The shark returns. Quint instructs Hopper to grab the barrels with the hook and secure them to the stern. Hopper succeeds, and Quint attempts to drag the shark by powering the boat in full throttle. But the shark uses its incredible strength because, again, it weighs 3 tons and pulls the boat in the opposite direction and nearly capsizing it and causing further structural damage before Quint cuts the ropes and attaches the boat. The shark breaks free from the barrels and submerges once again. Quinn demonstrates his mad obsession with shark hunting by destroying the radio, which Brody was attempting to call for help. This is like, he's just asking for some backup. Their boat's fucked. He's just like, no, we gotta take it out ourselves. It really reminds me of the boat captain out of The Simpsons. Oh yeah, out of The Simpsons.
Yeah, it's alright.
The shark begins to chase the boat, and Quint steers back towards land at full speed, dismissing Hopper's protest that he's overtaxing that already damaged engine. When the engine inevitably fails, the boat is left to slowly sink. So Quint, strangely calm, offers life jackets to the other men, though takes none himself. I noticed that as well. Everyone knows that? He throws out life jackets, but he has none for himself. Because he, feel like this is the way he wants to go out, taking down one of the big ones. Running out of options, Hopper resorts to putting on... This movie's a masterpiece. This scene's nuts. Where he's like, this shark's destroying our boat. Let me get into a cage. Crazy. So, running out of options, Hopper resorts to putting on scuba gear and having Quint and Brody lower him to the water inside a shark-proof cage. His aim to inject the shark with poison with a harpoon syringe. So Quint points out that the needle is too small to pierce the shark's hide, but Hopper believes that if he injects it in the beast's mouth, it will do the job. The cage proves to be no match for the shark, who attacks Hopper with such ferocity that he drops the harpoon. Hopper loves dropping shit, and is forced to hide in the reef while the cage is destroyed. Brody and Quint haul up the remain of the shark cage and can only assume that Hopper is dead. They barely have time to react before the shark leaps from the water like a breaching whale and lands most of its body on the sinking stern of the ship and starts breaking the vessel into two. Quint and Brody desperately cling to the cabin as the boat is upended, and the shark's gaping mouth at the bottom of the drop. Great shot of the shark just at the bottom with the jumping jaws. Quint ultimately loses his grip, and despite Brody's efforts to pull him up to safety, slides into the mouth of the shark and is gruesomely killed. This part is horrific. The shark, with Quinn's bloody corpse in its mouth, begins to slide back into the water. Horrified and believing himself to be the only survivor of this seemingly doomed mission, Brody hastily enters the cabin of the rapidly sinking ship and finds Hopper's pressurized air tanks. Glad they're there. The shark smashes through the side of the boat in its enormous mouth, super close to Brody, who attempts to fend it off by bludgeoning it with the tank. The shark retreats in the air tank, with the air tank now lodged in its jaws. With little more than the boat's mast remaining, Brody climbs up the summit with a rifle in hand. This truly is one of the greatest shots of all time. Now possessing some of Quint's courage and madness, Brody begins firing at the shark, aiming the air tank in his mouth, where he's like, "Come on, man, come on, show me the tank." At long last, Brody hits his mark. "Smile, you son of a bitch!" The tank explodes, taking the shark's head with it, and Brody laughs triumphantly as the blood and the shark flesh rain down him in the sea. One of the most elated laughs in cinema, where he's like, "Oh, I'm living." He's like, "Ah!" He's like full, like, you can see in a moment that he's crazy, he's nuts. So moments after the shark's vibrant destruction, Hopper finally resurfaces and misses the entire last fight, but is a coward. And the exhausted Brody is relieved to see him alive. The men share a weak chuckle before assembling a makeshift raft and paddling back to Amity's shore. What day is it? It's Wednesday. It's Tuesday, I think. I think the tide's with us. Keep kicking. Used to hate water. Can't imagine why. Fun fact here, over 67 million people in the US went to see the film when it was initially released in 1975, making it the first ever summer blockbuster. So that is Jaws. To start off, I'll start this one. I fucking love Jaws. I think this movie is a fucking masterpiece. I think everything about this movie is a masterpiece. The way that the tension is incredible. The characters are all so different, so distinct, but all so important and so well written. I love them all. I love Jaws so much. Let's start with the MVP guest, Kev. Kev, final thoughts on Jaws? Oh, I gave it 5 out of 5. Final thoughts on Jaws and your final score.
Yeah, just want to point out that this franchise is some of the most ridiculous, but I love it, like, endings to blow up the shark, because I think the second one, he also electrocutes it.
Yep.
So it's like they just find the most ridiculous ways, which I love it for that. But the monologue that Quint gives on the boat at night, I think, is one of the best monologues ever in cinema. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
and I never forget watching that as like a 7, 8-year-old kid, and just like I was pissed my pants. Like, it was like
It's horrifying.
it was terrifying. Like listening to him like explain that like all these men in the dark, you don't know what's underneath you, just getting picked apart. It's just like, oh my god, it's terrifying. I think Hopper like being like gone for the entire like climax part of the end is really hilarious to me.
Yeah, I think
And
it's
just like
funny as well.
popping up and just being like, hey, good
Yeah.
job.
I remember-
Like, you know?
I remember I saw this in the cinemas last year with a friend. At the end, he's just like, I can't believe Hopper just like left him. I was like, what's he gonna do? Like, well, what? Like, it's a killing machine. Like,
Because you also imagine how terrified he was, just like in the water, just like
Yeah.
looking around, like making sure this huge thing is not like right by him.
yeah,
But no, I think this movie's perfect. I think the ending is perfectly set up, and it's a 5 out of 5 for me, obviously.
hell yeah. Ash.
Yeah, it's hard to follow the person who has this as their favorite movie of all time. Yeah, the end like 30 minutes is just so insane. It definitely is what solidifies it as like the blockbuster. This shark, I asked myself so many times, I was like, is it really not real? Like, I know it looks fake in some aspects, but they do such a good job considering that it's an animatronic, like fake shark. They do such a good job making you still scared and making you still like jump, which I really appreciate. Considering I've seen the actual like animatronic Universal Studios that they have, like the little ride you can go. I've seen what that looks like up close, and it looks so fake. So I'm very happy that on camera it does not translate that way. But yeah, the scene where he comes up and bites his like Quint's body, and he like that scene is brutal. And then obviously when he blows it up, I literally was like cheering out loud during that moment. It's so good. It's so perfect. I can't imagine them ending it any other way. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fantastic movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I don't think that's bad.
Boo.
Ooh, I know.
You say it's
Um,
excellent, and everyone's booing.
I mean, it's just not a favorite. For me, it has
Yeah,
to be
that's
like a
fair.
favorite. I have to be emotionally like moved by it in some fashion. And for me, it's not. I mean, I love it. There's nothing wrong with it, but the beginning does take a little bit of time for me, at least personally, to kind of
That's a
get
fair
up and
point.
get going. And I'm just not like a big creature feature gal. It's not my favorite thing.
It is
But
also
I
a
think,
story of three blokes just on a
yeah,
ship
I mean,
hunting a fish. Like,
yeah, so much I can relate to here.
yeah,
No,
that's
but I
fair
think
enough.
it's a great film. I think it's a lot of fun, and now that I've watched it as an adult, I can't wait to like rewatch it more throughout the summer. I think it's an essential summer movie, and yeah, music by John Williams, perfect. Suspense, perfect. And yeah, Brody's my favorite character.
Hell yeah. Byron.
4.5. Oh yeah, I already said that.
Nice. Byron.
Quint was my favorite character, so it was rather unfortunate to re-see him go in the way that he does. And also with him blowing up the shark it's one of the biggest fuck yeah moments in cinema. No, I think Jaws is great. It's not just iconic and influential. It's just a all-time great movie. It's inside my top 50 movies of all time. I could even see it going to maybe top 30. And that's a good spot. I've restricted my 5 out of 5s to only 100. And there's no universe where this isn't in that list. It's a perfect movie. It'll forever be a perfect movie. It's, I believe, my 5th ranked horror movie of all time. It's one of the greatest thrillers of all time. It's just one of the greatest movies ever made. It may be Steven Spielberg's best. It's flawless. I mean, what can I say? It's flawless.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well done,
What's
guys.
your guys' favorite Steven Spielberg? Just curious.
Mine's Jaws.
Jaws.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Raiders. It's Raiders. It's been Raiders for so long. I don't know.
That's
It's
fun.
Jaws, Raiders. They're both there, man.
What'd you say?
I was muted, but I said Jurassic Park.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Jurassic
tell-
Park's good too.
E.T. is a close second, though. I love E.T.
Oh my
so
god.
much.
Straight
That's
up.
my 4.5. There we go. It's a 4.5.
E.T., Jurassic Park, bloody Jaws, Indiana Jones.
Can I ask you guys a question? What's your guys'
Yeah.
opinion on on Ready Player One.
I
need
knew
to
you were
know.
going to ask this.
It's a
love
good
it.
movie.
I love it.
I love
It's
Ready
great.
Player One.
I love
Thank
Ready
you.
Player
It's a great
Thank you.
movie.
Yep.
It's a 4 out of 5.
Let me
Yeah,
just
same.
read out some titles, guys. All right, so we got Schindler's List,
Banger.
Fablemans,
Four.
E.T., Jurassic Park,
Five.
Jaws,
Four.
Jaws,
Jaws, yeah.
Raise the Lost Ark, Ready Player One, Saving Private Ryan, Catch Me If You Can, Color Purple, Close Encounters, War of the Worlds, Munich, fucking Adventures of Tintin. Did he do Goonies?
What is that?
No, he didn't do Goonies. He was involved in the production though.
Oh,
Like on the
the
executive
fucking
producer.
Terminal. He secretly definitely directed Poltergeist. Like Warhorse, Lincoln, Minority Report. If you think he's a bad director, go fucking lick rocks. Like he fucking rules.
Like all those are like four or higher, pretty
Yeah,
much.
it's
Yeah.
insanely impressive.
I think he's top 5 at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd almost definitely top 5, maybe even top 3.
Well, that
And he's not my
is
favorite director by any means, but he's certainly up there.
nice. Well, that is our review for Jaws. Kev, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you.
That was an absolute hoot. Next week we are watching Wake in Fright to kind of curve off to finish off
And
to finish off the month of Sweat, which is an Australian film that Ash and Byron
The
have
Who.
not seen, which I know that you guys are going to love. So I can't wait. I can't wait to chat through that one.
What is it called, if you don't mind me asking?
Wake in Fright.
Wake in Fright.
got a really cool poster.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
I'm gonna.
It's great. It's good fun. It's like every movie's a bit of fun. This movie's about hunting a killing machine and it's fun. Like every movie is.
Oh,
If you're not having fun watching movies, don't watch movies. You know. But
It's
yeah,
on my watch list now.
epic, awesome. So we got all Kev's all these links in below. Gotta be honest, if you're listening to this podcast, you're definitely already following Kev.
Oh, thank you.
But Kev, you're truly one of the best, and you're the first MVP of the LDM podcast. So we're definitely going to have you back on. We'll send you the list of. We basically scheduled out until I think we got until the end of October. We'll do the end of December by the end of the next couple of
Hell
weeks.
yeah.
So we'll send you out and we'll get you on for another one, man. You're always a joy to have on. But follow us on everything. Just follow Kev on everything if you haven't. Sincerely doubt that you don't already. And we'll see you next time for Wake and Fright. Until then, I'm Harry. That's Ash. That's Byron. That's Kev. And we love death movies. We'll see you at the movies.